Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to today's event. I'm Jason Gumpert from msdynamicsworld.com, and we're here for a session all about licensing the cloud, specifically Dynamics AX and 365. Our presenter today is Deborah Woodich from AXMentor. It's great to have her with us. And as we get started, I just want to add a couple of details on today's session. First of all, we do welcome your questions. You can enter them at any point using the Q&A block you should see to the right of the main presentation area, and I know Deborah will be making time for those throughout the session. Please also be on the lookout for a couple poll questions we have planned for later on in the presentation too. So without any further delay, I'm going to hand things over to Deborah to get things started.
Great. Thank you so much, Jason. I'm excited to be here. Again, today we're here to talk about licensing the cloud and the different situations and ramifications about that for existing customers. We'll get started by taking a look at the agenda. Today we're going to cover a brief introduction of who I am and who AXMentor is. We're going to take a full look at Dynamics 365 Enterprise Edition and review the questions you see in front of you. Then we'll jump into some of the transition options that customers have. And then we'll move towards a wrap-up of going over some of the high-level roadmap for 365, as well as some resources you can immediately take advantage of. And then we'll go through a wrap-up with some go-dos, a review of what we covered today, as well as questions. So like Jason said, feel free to pop those questions in the Q&A box as we go, and I'll take a couple breaks to address them during the presentation. There is quite a bit of content, so I'll probably take a few towards the earlier part of the presentation, and then we'll hold out closer to the end to take a few more. Either way, I'm happy to follow up on all the questions that you provide today, even if we don't get to them within the hour. You can see here I have a little fine print, and that's really just to tell you guys that this really is for informational purposes only and to give you a high-level idea of how the licenses are sold, what they comprise, in terms of user rights, and a little bit about existing customer license conversion, but really everyone's license scenario is unique because it all varies depending on your existing agreements, how you purchase the license, and through which channels you purchase them through to begin with. So really just keep this as a good high-level info document and really work with, your team and your partners at Microsoft to find the ultimate best solution for yourself. All right, so we'll kick off with a brief introduction here. A little background on AXMentor. We were founded in 2006, so we've been a Microsoft partner going on 11 years now. We've had great close ties with Microsoft throughout frequent participation and dedicated AXMentor resources to their TAP programs, as well as providing evaluations of technology. We're huge proponents of hands-on learning and making sure we have a solid understanding of the technology before bringing it to our customers. We're also really active with AXUG and CRMUG, and we have some board members. So you will not be unfamiliar if you see us around there, and definitely feel free to come say hi. We have a global reach with a domestic presence out west. San Diego is our headquarters, and that's where I'm based out of. And we also have offices in Southern California and Temecula, Irvine, up in Washington and Bellevue. And then we have some colleagues in Copenhagen in Denmark, as well as London in the UK. In terms of vertical experience, we focus on manufacturing and distribution, professional services, as well as public sector. We provide a myriad of services, and some of those highlights are help desk and support, both proactive and reactive, roadmaps and licensing, hence today's webinar, solution discovery, development of all levels, implementation, as well as training. We have an affiliate IP company where all of our IP is developed, and that is called Axtras. And so the Axtras product line that we have currently offering is the AX Admin app, and it's a mobile app for more system administrators for AX, QAX, which is a quality address verification for AX, as well as an advanced public sector module for analysis and reporting of finances. All right. Moving on, we'll take a quick look at some of our customers. It's just a little sampling of the customers that represent our vertical expertise. And some of them should seem familiar to you. Please disregard the Experian logo on the bottom. Experian is one of our partners, but not in today's presentation. All right. And then a little bit about this crazy lady that you hear on the phone. I am AXMentor's Client Roadmap Advisor. So I pretty much deal with all of our current customers and helping them set up business and technical roadmaps so that as they move forward with the Microsoft technology stack, they know what's coming, how it will affect them, and how they can best make use of their investment going forward. I've been with the Dynamics channel for about 2 years, just as long as I've been with AXMentor, and I have previous experience working with the Navy for a consulting firm doing project management, configuration management, naval acquisition, and some talent management. At AXMentor, again, focusing on the roadmaps, licensing, project management, as well as Dynamics, AX, and CRM. And then some fun facts. I am an Iron Woman. I finished Iron Man in Napa, California 2 years ago, and I enjoy rock climbing. So without further ado, we will jump into the Dynamics Enterprise Edition and what exactly that is. So Dynamics 365, what is it? So essentially, Microsoft is unifying their Dynamics CRM capabilities and Dynamics AX, and in doing so have created a group of business applications that provide users the option to do more focused work instead of having these very large solutions that they're used to working in. I say that mostly for CRM with AX. I'm sure most of you know AX is a very massive tool and has been consolidated down into one app. It has not lost any of its functionality. But some new changes are coming with that later on, and we'll talk about that during the roadmap. But the core focus was to take this suite of business functionality and break it out into a way that people can more easily take advantage of it, as well as share information back and forth across the organization. I believe all of you would be familiar with this slide at this point. If you're familiar with Dynamics 365, it's a typical slide that kind of shows the entire suite of the Dynamics 365 suite, as well as the other Microsoft platform and how they interact together. I've always found that it doesn't tell the whole story in depth, so I've kind of broken out the other parts of that interact with 365 here. So what you're looking at here is just kind of a little one-word wrap-up of each of the things you saw on the previous slide. But the way Dynamics works is it's a common cloud-based platform with the tools that let you integrate, automate, push and pull data, and get insights. So when you look at Power Apps is a tool to help you integrate and enables you to combine data and actions from Dynamics apps and let them work together with external systems or in between each other. Flow is the automation tool that allows the information to go back and forth or for information to do something based on a certain trigger. The Common Data Service, formerly known as Common Data Model, is a facilitation tool. It's a data store and service that it facilitates the integration by bringing together common entities and names so that we can work with external systems and speak the same language. Office 365, it has been and for the foreseeable future always will be the tools that we use to produce. It's Word, PowerPoint, Excel, the things we're used to working in that help us get, the meat of what we do done. And now the fact that we can easily go in and out of Dynamics 365 to Office 365 bolsters that productivity ability. Azure IoT, Internet of Things, it functions as a set of tools for gathering all of the disparate data that is outside of Dynamics 365. So your warehouse devices, your elevator sensors or machine sensors, things like that. IoT helps you collect that information. So now that you've collected it, what do you do with it? You obviously want to analyze it so you can do something with it. And that's what Cortana Intelligence does. And it's quite a few services that enable analysis of your data and let you then do predictive analytics, which brings you to Power BI, which is a great visualization tool that is embedded within Dynamics 365. And you can also make your own Power BI visualizations that may require a little bit more of a more robust license type. But overall, Power BI lets you visualize the data that you've collected and analyzed. And overall, this is how the whole ecosystem works together and what each of these tools that you've heard of does within that to make it work well. So kind of jumping now into the licensing. How do I buy Dynamics 365 Enterprise? And it is available in two ways. You can buy it through a plan or at the app level. Plans let you buy the suite or like multiple apps to accomplish a certain end goal. Where on the app end, that's more of that focused work where, you know, a certain user really only needs this one application. I really don't need a whole suite, and it may be, you know, a more cost-effective means to buy a few apps rather than buying a plan. All of these are on a subscription-based model, so that can be by month or depending on, you know, the way and channel that you purchase, you might have other options for that. Within the plans, you get Power Apps and embedded Power BI. I say embedded because it is not a full-blown Power BI license. So depending on the types of visualizations and reporting you need to do, you might have to buy a full Power BI license even if you get a plan. But that is subject to change, and you may already have it as part of something else. The plans come in two flavors, Plan 1 and Plan 2, very unique names. But basically, Plan 1 is all of your CRM-centric apps, so your sales, marketing, customer service, field service, and things like that. Whereas Plan 2 is all of that, but with operations. So that's the full suite of Dynamics 365, and there is a 20 full user minimum for that. On the app side of the house, it's simply you can buy the apps a la carte individually. And again, with the operations app, you have that 20 full user minimum. All right. Perfect. So jumping over to how is it licensed, what you're seeing right here are the different license types. One thing I'll kind of call out right away is the activity type is brand new, and it is only available for the operations app or Plan 2 with operations. Essentially, a full user is a power user. You have the ability to do everything within the tool. If you purchased via a plan, that means you will have full power user rights throughout the entire suite of applications. If you just simply purchase one single app, you would have full user rights to that app. With the activity, moving over to the right, it is only applicable again for operations, but it is equivalent to a functional type CAL. If you're not familiar with the functional CAL, it's a 2012 license type, and it's, you know, just below a full user. You have a lot of functionality with it, and I'll kind of give you a brief overview of that, but it isn't a full user. So you have some approvals, but not all approval type rights. A team member is a new concept. A team member is a single SKU, so you can have a team member across a plan, or you can have a team member just for an app. It really depends how you went about buying Dynamics 365 to what the team member has access to. Essentially, a team member is a light user, so self-service type tasks, and you have full read access to everything that you have access to. So if you have a lot of people that you want to just share reports with and they don't do anything, like maybe some vendors, you want to let them know how they're doing, they have this ability to read that information that you provide without having to get a full license. Um, Previously, team members were tiered, so depending on the amount of team members you purchased, they would get cheaper as they went up, but they have actually gotten rid of the tiered pricing type, and they have slimmed it down into one price point. And I'll get into that in a few slides. A device license is a device license. It's for a device that does a specific purpose. So you would not have a device as included in a plan. You would have a device purchased by the specific app or functionality it needs to do. And I'll get into the pricing of that very shortly. Okay, so moving on. These are the updated operations use rights in light of the new activity SKU. I did want to bring up the activity license type will be available starting in May. So this is I'm providing some information ahead of schedule, but since you guys have given me your morning, I will give you some useful information. The use rights for the activity SKU will include the ability to approve all transactions generated by activity users, as well as the ability to create or edit items related to warehousing, receiving, shipping, production, orders, purchase orders, sales orders, project activities, vendor maintenance, and all budget-related activities. The SKU also provides an individual user with all of the use rights included. It would be included with the operations device. There are different scenarios where it might make more sense to get an activity license instead of a device license, even if they're doing similar things. But that's the type of conversation that you would have with your partner. You really would review your license types and see what you need in Dynamics 365 based on your business process. I won't get too much into the weeds on this. You will be able to have access to this presentation after this. It will be recorded as well, so you'll be able to read through this. And while we're looking at this, one of the reasons why the team member license pricing had changed was due to some of the complexity around the tiers involved with that. But there were no major changes to what a team member could do or couldn't do. But if you're interested in that, feel free to reach out for me, and I can provide you with some resources that detail in depth everything that these user types can do, as well as by role, especially with the operations app. So we will flip over to a quick poll question. So Jason, if you don't mind providing everybody with the poll question, but just to get a quick understanding of, do you understand the difference between the plan versus an app, as well as the full member versus a team member, and things like that? We will review these questions at the end and kind of give you guys all an understanding of what your peers, how your peers answered, because I do know it takes a couple of seconds to get all the results in. So I'll give you guys a couple seconds to do that while I queue up the next slide. Okay, so everybody's favorite question, how much does this cost? So what I've provided here is a breakdown of the list costs that you would see publicly online of each license type. All prices you're seeing are per user or device per month, so keep that in mind. As an existing customer, you would have some different pricing options, and we'll get into that later. But basically, you'll see all the way to the left, the full user types are that highest level license type, and those are the prices depending on whether you buy it as a plan or as an app. I did italicize Power Apps because in some cases you may need to purchase Power Apps separately, especially depending on the type of use that you want to do with it. But as if you purchase a plan, you would get that power user functionality of Power Apps included in the plan. If you go the route of buying individual apps, you would have to purchase it separately if you needed that type of functionality. And then moving to the right, you would see activity, team member, and device, and the prices associated with them in plan, or like with the plan or the app. Really, it's just the activity, but since the activity is only part of the operations app, it's automatically in plan too, as well as the highlighted new flat price of $8 for the team member and the device licenses. I did have a quick question pop up. What about a developer license? So a developer license, it would really depend on which product you're talking about. But overall, it would depend on what the developer is looking to do. So typically, I would think a developer would have a full user. You would also, I'll get into some other situations and considerations you should think about a little later on in the presentation, and I'll mention developer Visual Studio licenses as well as some developer sandboxes you might need. But it really, for a developer, it would depend on what they're doing and in what system, the price point. So I'd be happy to follow up with you after to kind of learn more about that. Again, I have a couple of caveats on here. All pricing is subject to change by Microsoft, especially because some of this is still up and coming with the May announcement. And then the team member tier pricing went away because of some of it wasn't always wound up being beneficial for the end user with the level of effort it took to kind of tier them together. So that's why we have a flat price. Additionally, pricing is subject to change depending on the purchasing program, if you will, that you bought through. So the prices you see right now are the prices in line. This would be standard pricing for any net new Microsoft customer to go and purchase Dynamics 365. But just as an existing customer, always keep in mind that you may have other options to you, and we'll discuss that at a high level shortly. One of the new and exciting things that's coming to light is Dynamics 365 for operations on premises. And so here I have a breakdown of what that looks like in terms of cost. Again, this is very new news, so this can definitely change, but the way you can do on-premise is you can do it at like more of an enterprise subscription or just do a perpetual yearly, and this is approximately what that cost would look like for you. The PUPM is per user per month. And essentially, from a high level, it will be 55% of the cloud cost, but you don't get any of the cloud benefits, which I will speak to shortly. You must have LCS to work with operations, so keep that in mind, but you're not going to get all of that robust reporting capability and analytics. You'll get some high-level telemetry through LCS, but all of the nice and exciting things about going with the cloud you don't get with on-premise. However, you will be saving some money to a certain degree, depending on how you look at it. Again, this is specifically for operations. This isn't speaking to like cloud and edge deployments, but this is reflective of the local business data on-premise option. And I did not get into deployment options within this presentation because they do vary depending on your situation and what's best for you. But I'd be happy to talk deployment options with you at another time. Okay. So moving on to kind of, what is the value of the cloud? I get a lot of questions around, so do I have to pay extra for this, for that, et cetera, et cetera. So with your license, when you go with Dynamics 365, these are the things that come standard for you. I've broken it out into Dynamics 365 Enterprise and Dynamics 365 Operations because Operations does have its own dedicated sandbox environments and production environments. So you don't have to worry about if you went per se with Plan 2 that your operations would be, performance would suffer because it's sharing resources with the other cloud applications. That's not the case. So this is a quick breakdown. You get your high availability infrastructure. I think some of you at this point have, and if you haven't, you should check out some of the videos of the Microsoft data centers. They're really impressive. So you're essentially using their infrastructure with all of the security and best practice that goes along with that. Disaster recovery. Which is huge because if you actually buy disaster recovery separately, it can be pretty astronomically expensive. And this is done by Microsoft. They're monitoring your production environments 24/7, 365 days a year. So it's a good peace of mind, and it kind of frees up your IT department to then focus on other things like, learning and bettering the technology for the rest of the company. When it comes to these sandbox environments, standard you'll get a dev and a test. So to one of the questions I got before, you will need a extra developer sandbox per developer that needs to do development for those systems. So that's something to keep in mind is how many you might need. But these are what comes standard with enterprise and then with operations, your production environments. The left-hand side says 2 included because this actually originally it was lumped in with operations. And then you would get additional usage rights software to things like embedded Power BI, Power Apps, and some of and then if you have Office, those integrations as well. But there are cases where you might need an additional license for those things. So I'll continue to put that caveat in there. And then of course, these are not, what you're seeing in front of you is not applicable to on-premise deployments. You're in charge of your own infrastructure and your own disaster recovery and how you set up your environments and manage them. So, but overall, there is a lot of sticker shock when people start looking at Dynamics 365 and they see this license price. They're like, oh, okay, and then they're like, oh, that's per user per month. Okay, that adds up quickly, but you're really getting a lot more than just a license with it. You're getting all of this extra capability and the ability to collect data from across your organization, which I personally think is really exciting. So if you're running 365 at a plan level, or even if you have multiple apps, you can harness all of that data and insight that you might not have otherwise had access to. Because in a traditional environment, marketing has their tools and, they'll surface a report to everybody, but, you can't pull it as you need it. The same thing with like finance and, production, like everybody's kind of working in their own area, and the cloud really lets you start to see trends across the organization. And this is also important with things like talent management and employee morale and things like that. So while there is a little bit of sticker shock, there are things to consider outside of that in terms of what is the real value of it versus just the cost. Which brings us into our next slide, which is some license considerations. A lot of people have asked me about what is the true cost of performance. Really, how do I know that this cloud solution is going to scale for me? And to kind of mitigate that, one, you have Microsoft consistently monitoring you, but they put you through a lengthy onboarding process that you're, as the end user, directly involved in, your partner is involved in, as well as Microsoft. So you have a detailed kind of questionnaire to ensure that Microsoft really understands your needs and when you need to scale, when your heavy load times are or high volume transaction times are, and that all enables them to easily make an elastic environment that is suited specifically for you. There's also machine learning, so you'll have a system that essentially gets smarter over time, which is pretty neat. On the flip side of that, there are some extras that you will most likely need and that are recommended as best practices. Every developer needs their own sandbox, so you should have a best practice of at least 2 tier 1 type, and those are the developer sandboxes. And all of this information can be provided for you guys as well in terms of different costs and what the different types of sandboxes do. And then there can be cases of where you need additional storage. For developers, all development will be done via Visual Studio instead of traditional AX development. So you would need a Visual Studio license, but it's a pretty nominal cost overall. So those are some things to keep in mind. So, especially if you're thinking about implementation and timeline, overall implementation times are coming down. However, the more prepared you are with understanding your business process and what your true needs are and when you'll need them, will make that onboarding process go more quickly and more efficiently and ultimately give you better value. I had another quick question. So the 20K per user per month for DR, it was really like I should have said per tenant. That was a stat I pulled off of Azure. I'm not 100% sure like which level of service that was. I believe it was their premier disaster recovery, but it's not per user. It was more per tenant to address that. So hopefully that helps. Then we're going to jump to a second poll question. Now that we just talked about value. But do you believe the value of services included within your license overall is comparable to the price that you would be paying as an organization? And we'll review those answers later on. But this is just to kind of get a good gauge of how you guys are feeling about what's coming. And Microsoft's been actually very receptive to getting feedback from end users, and a lot of the changes that you'll be hearing in the roadmap in the coming months are directly a result of that feedback. So we'll be sure to share some of that with them as well. I will, at this poll question, take a some quick time if there are other Q&A type questions or just questions about what we just covered before we jump into the existing transition options. I'll dedicate a minute or two to those right now because I'm not going to take questions until the end after that because the existing customer information is more in depth. So we'll put 60 seconds on the clock. So hopefully you can type fast. All right, I'm not seeing anything pop in, but again, we'll save some time at the end. So now that we've gone over, what Dynamics 365 is, how it works, a bit about the pricing and how it's licensed, as well as, what comes standard with it. I wanted to jump into some existing customer transition options. Again, I put some fine print on there just as a reminder. This isn't law. This is simply a collection of information that I put together based on all of the research I've done to provide you guys with some info. Actually, we did have a quick question come in. Do you have any more information on the marketing piece that Microsoft has promised? I unfortunately do not. There has been a little bit of information provided, but things are still unclear. I haven't seen anything about pricing either. If I can, I will try to find some info. There might also be some information available on Customer Source, but nothing has been, formally announced to the partner community. They had a webinar recently, but it was more of a progress update. So I would have to get back to you on that. All right, so when it comes to existing customer transition options, Microsoft is doing their best to kind of recognize the investment that you have already put into the tool and the money that you've spent. So they have a number and different types of discounts existing users can take advantage of, and that ranges depending on the purchasing program that you went through. So if you bought through an EA or if you bought through open or volume licensing or the Dynamics list price, it's always different. So be sure to review the options, consider what's best for your company long term as well, because these transition discounts are good for the short term, but they will expire after a certain point. So just to think about the before and after, and your partner should be able to do this for you. They have access to your license letter and would know how things work. And then I'm ready and willing to help people as well. And then from there, so I did see a couple more questions pop up. I'm going to leave them until the end, but I will get to those. So thank you for popping them in, and everybody can continue to do that as well. So again, just to drive home the point that really to work closely with your partner and with Microsoft to understand where you should be going and what you should take advantage of. So from a high level, these are your transition options for customers who are on premises looking to go to the cloud. As I say that, this first option is for those folks that would like to go on premises AX or CRM to, well, I guess I should just say AX, to on-premises operations. And more or less what you would do with that is, as a customer who is current on their enhancement and or software assurance, you are eligible to upgrade at no cost to that on-premise operations. It's part of your existing license rights. I would say at no cost if applicable, because if you need extra license, you might need to pay for them. But step one of transitioning is to do a license true-up, especially if you're running AX 2009 or earlier, because the license types have changed to named users, and that changes how you would do things. But a license true-up is something you should be keeping track of at least yearly, and your partner can help you with that to get a final understanding of what you need in terms of licenses, so that when you purchase, you're getting the best long-term rate if you lock it in one go, if you will, instead of a phase. There are options for doing it phased as well, but that may be a little too in the weeds for this presentation. Continue to pay your software assurance or enhancement plan. For those of you that don't know what that is, that's that 16% maintenance fee, if you will. It can be 25% as well, depending on the service that you get. But that's what this SA and enhancement is. A huge, 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 huge major announcement and thing that if you do nothing else you really need to write down is that you must either get an enhancement plan or software assurance or continue to keep up with it moving forward. If you do not and you lapse on that, you will lose your access to lifecycle services, which is your means of running your AX on-premise. So that is extremely important to remember. So if you do not have software assurance or an enhancement plan and you're thinking of doing this, contact your partner and look into getting one. If you don't have one right now, you're also not eligible to get that upgrade automatically. So it's something to keep in mind and something to be very, very aware of because you don't want to lose that. Lifecycle services is the means of how you move code through your environments and promote it. It's also how you keep track on telemetry and usage of your system. So while you have an on-premise deployment, you will have some of that information in the cloud technically because that's where LCS lives. You also use LCS to throughout your implementation and application lifecycle. But that is a story for another day. And if you have questions about that, I'm happy to take them later in the call or after the call. But please be aware that you must have your software assurance and enhancement plan and be up to date on it. Microsoft has put this requirement into place for two reasons. First, because they need a revenue stream to keep the cloud service going. Not so much in that they're making money off of it, but they have to maintain it, as well as the value associated with the information that you're getting in there. So that is verbatim how that they've posed that. And LCS is a really cool tool. If you're unfamiliar with it, I definitely recommend going in and checking it out. It has a lot more than just environment management in there. They have business process modeling, which is huge for your organization, and there's just a lot of good things it can do for you. So hence that is why this is underlined. So the next thing would be review how licenses will convert to Dynamics 365. More or less, licenses can, when you upgrade technologies, your licenses convert over differently, especially when you go from 2009 or earlier to 2012, because you're going from concurrent users to named. Depending on your situation, there's some advantageous conversion quantities you would get. So for instance, you might, for one 2009 license, you might get 3 2012/Dynamics 365 licenses. So that's something you can review internally. The information is in customer source, or you can work with your partner on. And then finally, eligible, if you're eligible as a person with good standing software assurance or enhancement plan, you're eligible to upgrade to operations on-prem and no extra costs if applicable. And if applicable is at 1, you must be current on your EP or SA. And then if you need additional seats, you would have to purchase those, of course, because you would be eligible to upgrade at no cost 1-to-1, but if you need net new seats, you would have to pay for those. So moving on to the options for transitioning to the cloud, you have the option to do a perpetual plus a cloud on, as well as move to full subscription. With the perpetual plus cloud add-on, quite a few of these steps are the same. You'd want to do your license true-up, continue to pay. You would continue to pay your SA and your enhancement plan indefinitely. Some of the reasons why you might want to do that is you may be a very early Dynamics customer, and so your protected list price is relatively low. And with that, you have some really great benefits. Say your partner has excellent support benefits that they get through their channels. And if you drop that, you would essentially be dropping those support perks, and you would be getting the standard support that's built into Dynamics 365. And that's something worth bringing up, that there is support built into Dynamics 365, but it varies in the type of level. Basic is very basic, but it is included. But anything above that would be a per user cost. I didn't include support in here because it is a little bit of a different conversation, but I'd be happy to provide that info to you later on. And again, that support also varies with the type of license agreement you have. So anyway, that is a little reason why you might want to use this option of continuing to pay your enhancement plan and use a cloud add-on. I'll get into a cloud add-on later. Review how your licenses will convert in Dynamics 365. And then what is interesting about this cloud add-on option is that you can use it at any time you want to go to Dynamics 365. So even if you're midterm in between your anniversary or your renewal, this is the option you would exercise to get access to the cloud 365 at any time in your life cycle. So you can go that route and continue to keep all of the benefits of your EP or SA. Occasionally, this could be a cheaper option for you long term, even though you would continue to pay your enhancement plan. But some of the numbers I've crunched for some of our customers, I've seen that be a better option. But again, it really is case-by-case basis. So finally, you move to a full cloud subscription, option 3. And again, you would do the same first 3 steps of, well, I take that back. You would do your license true-up before you move forward because you want to make sure you're compliant. You also want to make sure you have what you need. But you will wind up dropping your software assurance or enhancement plan after your renewal date or anniversary date. So that would be a cost you would no longer incur long term. And then review how your licenses will convert. And you would utilize a from SA option. It's from software assurance or from enhancement plan is how that name came about. But you can use this option at renewal or anniversary to purchase Dynamics 365. And if you are in a midterm for however many months, you would use the cloud add-on option instead. But going forward, what you would see on your invoice or your bill would be a from SA for Dynamics 365 Enterprise Plan 2. That's just what you would see as the name of this option. And that's what you would pay from there because you went from your software assurance to a subscription plan long term. So again, depending, so if you have a very, very high protected list price with an associated very high maintenance fee, this would be a good option for you. I know that was a mouthful of information, so if you have questions at the end, I'd be happy to go back over them with you when we get there. So moving on, so some transition options specifically for Dynamics AX 2012 customers. What this slide shows you is, of course, that this is on-premise to cloud transition. On the far left-hand side is your existing user license type in 2012, and what that equates to in Dynamics 365 is directly to the right of that. Currently, enterprise or functional can map to a full user, which is this Dynamics Enterprise Plan 2, aka full user type. I'm not sure if eventually that will go away and they will change that now that they've introduced the activity type. But as you go down the column, you'll see that a functional equates to an activity, a task equates to an activity, but that is changing. Going forward, there will be you may need 3 task licenses to equate to an activity license in Dynamics 365. So those are those conversion nuances that you would want to consider. And then again, the task or self-service, depending on what it is that they need or what you need in the cloud, you would use a team member, and then a device is equivalent to a device, not a vice. On the far right-hand side, you would see the From SA and the cloud add-ons, and the prices are reflected here is that you're seeing the From SA is, you're not paying your software assurance or enhancement plan anymore. So this would be your per user per month costs through the transition window. These are your discounted prices as an existing customer. So these would bump back up to about the full price that you saw earlier in the presentation because you're paying for the full cloud capability now. But you'll have a little bit of a discount regardless because you're an existing customer. The cloud add-on, you'll see here it is less expensive, but it's to reflect the fact that you are still paying for your enhancement plan and your software assurance. Right below there you see the transition discount window is through November 1st, 2019. So you can get a discount at any time throughout that window, but your discount is only good for one contract term, and that may differ depending on the program that you buy your licenses through. And of course, all of this pricing is subject to change by Microsoft. And you do have to have a first registered date before October 31st, 2016 to take advantage of these discounts. One other quick thing, again, the pricing that you're seeing is not available for EA type agreements, and again, can vary depending on how you originally purchased your licenses. And again, the discount is only good for one contract term, and the complete discount window ends into November of 2019. Okay. So moving over to 2009 or earlier. So here, some of you may or may not know that AX 2012 is retiring and will not be available for new customers, new Microsoft customers going forward. And part of that is because of the dawn of 365 on-prem for operations. I liked this graphic because it's a quick graphic that shows you how your licenses convert. Previously, when you were looking to upgrade, you would, if you were at 2009 or before, you would upgrade to 2012 type licenses and then potentially convert those 2012 licenses over to 365 to get the ultimate benefit. As you can see, for instance, this base pack equates to one server, one operations. When I say operations, that's that full user. And 2 activities. So especially for 1 license, you're now getting 3. So now Microsoft has enabled you to go direct to 365 and skip that middle of going to 2012, but retain the same quantities that you would have received. This is 365 for operations, so that's why you'll see a server. If you were doing generic cloud, your licenses would convert the same way. You just wouldn't have these servers, if that makes sense, hopefully. Again, I put in here you must be current on or procure an enhancement plan or software assurance to use on-premise and to convert as well. So they want you to be in good standing. You'll be able to review this after as well because it is a little bit of an eye chart. But the main thing I wanted to highlight is that in some cases when you do go through that conversion, you're coming out with extra users because you're going from a concurrent model to a named model, and they didn't want you to lose out on some of that. And again, this does say 365 for operations, mostly because this is AX, but it would be good for Plan 2 as well. Okay, and then finally we have some CRM info. I'm not 100% sure how many CRM folks we have on the call, but I didn't want to leave you out. But this again, similar to what you saw in the previous slides, if to the far left is your existing user license, and then directly to that is what it would equate to in 365, and then what your transition discount from SA and cloud add-on options are. Again, these are only for existing customers. If you are a brand new customer to Microsoft, you would not have an option to do a from SA or a cloud add-on. Okay, let's see. Moving on, we have, again, and the same transition window discount, same transition window. Okay. And then I'm not sure how many people on the phone are actually there may be a lot of CRM online users on the phone. I know where we have, we have 365 right now, but previously online users. But if you were an AX7 user or a CRM online user, you'll simply continue to pay your subscription as you currently do. AX7, your AX7 SKUs on your invoice will transition to their new titles in 365. If they haven't already, you have no action there. But CRM online customers moving to 365 do have some transition discounts and pricing that they can take advantage of, which I have in the next slide. And so again, far left, there are quite a few different types based on tier and by number for the licenses in CRM. So depending on that, it would equate to a few different things in 365. So again, this is another eye chart, but depending on where you're starting from, you'll have an understanding of where you would go and how much it would cost with the caveats on the bottom. So I'm going to try to answer one question before we move on from this. Let's see here. If you move to subscription, is that considered going to the cloud, Azure? And if so, you don't need to pay for an SA or enhancement anymore. So yes, if you move to a fully subscription-based model, you no longer pay your SA and enhancement. The reason for that is because you're taking advantage of Microsoft Cloud services now, that disaster recovery, the high availability infrastructure, 24/7 monitoring. So what you were paying for with your SA and your EP was more or less maintenance, and now that's included in your cloud subscription. So I hope that answers that. And then another one, if we go online with CRM before AX, can we start with Plan 1, then switch to Plan 2? Yes, you can. There may be some caveats with when you would be able to do that. And it might, depending on your timeline, be better for you to do it all at once and lock in some discounted license pricing that you could use long term. So again, that's one of the scenarios that you should work with your partner or with us or with Microsoft on to really look at what the effects will be long term. If you did one now and then phased it later, you might end up paying a higher price because they do have different types of discounts going on in the different channels and purchasing programs. So we're coming up at 5 minutes to 9, so I'm going to kind of chug through the rest of this. It shouldn't take very long. Wanted to give you a quick glimpse at the Dynamics roadmap, what's coming in the spring and summer. Most of this information is technically still under NDA, so I did not go into detail on it, but everything will be announced on May 3rd at the Business Forward event in New York, and they're live streaming that, so if you're interested in that, just look up Microsoft Events Business Forward, and you should be able to get an invite for your calendar for that. This spring, next month, you'll officially see the team member and activity license types release, as well as some additional information on local business data or on-premise 365. This summer, there will be added applications to the Dynamics 365 suite, and those will be around retail as well as talent management. There was a blog that was posted on Monday that will give you some insight into that. Overall, what it's essentially doing is really going to increase the value of the Operations app and bring it more in line with what Operations is. It's more than just a single application, if you will. So the Operations app will grow. It will have no effect on the price per se. And again, I won't get into detail, but it's just added value, but not necessarily cost. And there is a ton of really neat LinkedIn integration. So that acquisition is finally coming to light in terms of why they did it. So there will be a lot of, there's new things coming with sales. So you'll have some good LinkedIn navigation to look for potential opportunities and leads. And with talent, it looks like they're going to be integrating LinkedIn into the recruiting tool as well. So that's, as anyone or anybody in here who has done any recruiting, it was always a very expensive thing to use LinkedIn for recruitment. So this is a really exciting and a huge value to that community. So just something to think about. And of course, we'll have some updated naming conventions because can't have change without a brand new slew of names. So we'll do this again in 6 months from now, and I can tell you all the new fun things. Additionally, some resources for you all. The Dynamics 365 blog. There are these links. I realize you might not be able to see them or use them, but I'll talk to our Microsoft Dynamics folks and see if I can send them the actual written out links if you can't click on them. But the one highlighted here is the new offerings around talent, retail, and customer engagement. Of course, there's the public roadmap for Dynamics 365, which I highly recommend everybody to check out, weekly. And they have it broken down by, what's currently released, what's new, as well as what's in development, and there's options to toggle between the areas that you're interested in terms of you only want to see what's new in sales instead of operations, but really great information on there. They also have a roadmap for Azure too, so you can check that out, and also Customer Source provides a ton of learning material and reference material, so I highly, highly recommend if you're paying that enhancement plan and software assurance, you should have access to Customer Source, and there is a plethora of knowledge on there, especially in the Dynamics Learning Portal. All right, so to wrap things up, overview, what we went over today. You figured out who I was and who AXMentor was. We went over what is Dynamics 365 Enterprise and all the things associated with it, some options for existing customers, what's on the horizon for Dynamics, as well as some resources. So some go-dos that I would recommend to you guys are to review your licensing options, review how your organization is actually going to use the tool, and not just from a how am I doing it today, but how I want to be doing it or how I should be doing it long term. And get a demo trial of 365 and do your own exploration, especially with the tools you have in Customer Source. You can get a robust trial, an 18-month trial through Microsoft, your partner, or contact us, but you do need an Azure subscription, so keep that in mind. With that, we're at the top of the hour, so if you have more questions, I don't know if we can go over time, but if not, feel free to contact me, or I believe Jason is he'll show a poll question that'll let you have the option for us to contact you.
Thanks, Deborah. So yeah, we can absolutely keep going here. There's no need to shut things down if there are questions coming in or more. If you want to fill in any answers to questions you've already dealt with, I will put up that last poll question now as well.
Perfect. Yeah, and what you guys see in front of you is just some info to get in touch with me and just generally with AXM, as well as our website. I haven't seen any new questions pop up, but I'll stick around for another minute. But I can hear people dropping, so.
There was the question of access to the slides as opposed to the recording, which we are also capturing right now.
Yes. Can we make the slides available to everyone, or should they just reach out to me and I can provide them?
Yeah, really, however you'd like to handle that.
Okay. Yeah. I'd like to give folks the slides so they can review the info. There are a lot of very wordy ones, as well as those links. So we'll make sure people get that, and you'll have the recording as well.
All right. Excellent. I also want to remind folks, after you leave today, you should see a quick survey just telling you, asking you about your experience at the event. We really appreciate any feedback you can give there. I know our presenters do as well.
Okay, I did get one question for slide 21, AX 2009 transition. Is the column on the right for perpetual and still required a cloud add-on? So the column on the right, let me jump back to it real quick. Right, so, oh, it's 23, okay. So the column here, it's showing perpetual, but this would also be relevant if you go to a cloud subscription as well. So what you would either do if you decided you wanted to kind of do the cloud add-on, that means you want to keep your enhancement plan and software insurance, you would pay the cloud add-on in addition to that. The EP or SA, the enhancement plan, that's a yearly cost, and then your cloud on would be a monthly per user per month cost. If you want to do that middle column, like the perpetual plus cloud add-on, or if you want to move to full subscription, you would simply pay the from SA option. And so those prices are reflected in slide 22. So this would be what you were paying through the discount window, and then these numbers would jump up by about 40%. After the discount window ends, and that would be your cost from there. So again, from the SA, you'd wind up paying nearly that $210 of what an enterprise plan 2 would cost, or $190 if you just got operations. And then with the cloud add-on, you would pay, I think it would actually wind up being around $120 plus your EP after the discount window ends. But you can do that forever. It will always be an option to you. So hopefully that helps. So you have options in both ways. Yep, no problem. Cool.
All right, well, I'm not seeing any other questions right now.
Yeah, we can go ahead and wrap it up.
All right. Well, Deborah, thank you so much for presenting today and for answering so many questions.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to help. I'll talk to everybody soon, hopefully.
All right. With that, we are going to wrap things up. Have a great day, everybody.
All right. Thank you.